Bonjour, and welcome back to Vox Terra, aka Hidden Agendas. Today's question is Iran, or Persia, actually a democracy? Or a better question, is there an argument to be made that Iran is actually a democracy, and therefore we are attacking a fellow democracy? Well, why is that the better question? Is there an argument to be made? Because you want to question why, over the course of my entire lifetime, no one in our media sphere, political sphere, makes that argument. What kind of free country is that with a one-sided narrative? And what's the problem with having a one-sided narrative? So for this show, part 1, climate, 2, history, 3, not exactly us versus them, 4, well, you already know, 5, or 5, the structure of the government, kind of the meat of this one, 6, flip it around, 7, my fellow Americans. Let us proceed. Numero uno, or un, since I started off in French, put this attack on Iran in context with our unraveling climate. Parts of the Northeast blanketed with Canadian wildfire smoke again. And it feels like that's what happened in the past few summers. That did not used to be normal, but now it seems to be normal. France on fire again. Spain and Greece on fire again. Record-breaking heat waves in Europe. Record rainfalls. Record droughts. Rarely in one media sphere tied back to the very simple physics of global warming or climate change, and in the other media sphere not tied back at all and global warming or climate change mocked. And when the one media sphere that will tie it back to climate change on occasion, they even more rarely tie it back to fossil fuels. Two, or numero dos. Here a brief history of Iran that I've covered for you in numerous shows. The trouble for them started from, quote, us, close quotes, when they elected what we could call a democratic socialist in the 1950s, Mossad. Mossad nationalized the oil industry. The CIA and the MI5 orchestrated a coup, obviously with the help of elements within Iran, and they placed in power the Shah. The Shah sustained power with a secret police service called the Savak, which was trained or assisted by the CIA and the Israeli Mossad. Resentment grew. The Savak was good at cracking down on the left, but had to be careful cracking down and torturing and rounding up the religious. It's kind of analogous to like if you had a very Catholic country and the authorities would think twice before arresting and torturing the clergy. So the trouble with Iran, or for Iran, is a bright line back to protecting privatized oil industry interests. Numero tres, trois in French, I think. Think of this differently as us versus them. Notice I said how the CIA and the Mossad helped the Savak, secret police, but rather than think of that as Israel and America assisting in torturing Iranian dissidents for the good of, quote, American and Israeli interests, think of it as how America and Israel get used by dominant economic interests or cliques that dominate them. And if my fellow Americans saw it that way, I think you'd be seeing things a little differently like I am. Cuatro, in the media ether, or what you already know. So before I even get to the structure of that Iranian government, you got enough in the media sphere ether floating around out there that if you start working at it, you can start flipping stuff around in your head. Before I actually read up on how the Iranian government is structured, or regime, I remember hearing over the years, Iran had elections, the more moderates won, but then the moderates lost to the hardliners because of U.S. sanctions or maybe U.S. attacks. That should be a big, so this regime, this quote regime, as a way to vilify somebody, has elections. I'm not hearing about elections in some of the other Gulf states. What about those pro-Iranian protesters that got shot dead in Pakistan, if I'm remembering that news story correctly, by Pakistani security forces outside the U.S. Embassy. Couldn't you then say that our allies are the ones holding or oppressing down their own people? And then as the war was first launched, or we first launched the war, I heard on Barron Streetwise, an expert in the oil markets in Iran, talking about the problem with overthrowing this, quote, regime is it's got a lot of support. So who do they even surrender to? Who do you even turn your arms into? And now, the part you've all been waiting for, the structure of the Iranian government, or numero cinco. Just go into Wikipedia, because they cite their stuff, and none of what I'm saying here sounds anything wacko. It's just all basic mainstream. It's just not getting explored. The 1979 revolution brought in a constitution. That's the one that overthrew the Shah, which we supported, and etc. In December of 1979, that constitution of the Islamic Republic of Iran was ratified by a popular referendum. Just citing Wikipedia, it had a 99.5% of Iranian voter approval. And that their constitution combined elements of democratic, the word I'm using, they used republican governance, with theocracy. The Constitution provides for a separation of powers, kind of like ours, among an executive, a legislative, and the judicial. Wow. A lot like the good old US of A there. Only difference is their in God we trust aspect seems to be a lot stronger. There isn't that separation of religion and state. The legislature of Iran has two parts: the Consultative Assembly, which can establish laws, and it's elected by the people directly, by secret ballot. Sounds similar to the U.S. House of Representatives. The other part of the legislature is called the Guardian Council. I never heard of this one before, and apparently half its members are chosen by the supreme leader, and the other half elected by this thing called the Islamic Consultative Assembly. Now maybe here you could pick that one apart a bit, because it's more of a republic style government than a direct democratic election, but there's more to the story. And in a sense, you could think about it like the English House of Lords and House of Commons, or the American Senate and the House of Representatives. Then they got a president. The president is elected for a, get this, 4-year term. Well, somebody loves America, but is like, why'd you guys have to support the Shah, but we think you're doing a lot of cool stuff? I mean, how many Iranians have you met? Because all the ones I've met seem to genuinely like Americans, and whether they're for or against the Islamic Revolution of '79, they'd seem like they'd like to be allies with us if they could. And that president is also elected by a direct vote of the people. Not an electoral Congress like we have, but a direct vote. And someone loves the U.S. again, may not serve for more than 2 consecutive terms or no more than 8 years. Next, the part that sounds theocratic again, but what's the rule? No nation can be theocratic or we're going to bomb them? Does that seem like a rule to you? This part is called the Assembly of Experts. But that Assembly of Experts is elected by a direct vote of the public. And it's the Assembly of Experts who appoint the supreme leader. And that's the term I think that, the media, the politicians kind of love to glom on, supreme leader, because it sounds so undemocratic. But he's appointed by people who are elected directly by the public. Who tells us that? And even that term supreme leader, well, think about it. We in the US of A have a Supreme Court with a lifetime appointment, and they're not elected. They're appointed by the president, who's elected by the Electoral Congress. And that supreme leader is kind of like, it sounds like an extreme version of a European parliamentary system where the parliament elects the prime minister rather than the people. Now, also note, even with that theocratic element, again, I've known people from Iran who are not Muslim, and, well, where do we ever learn this one? But I'm citing it to Wikipedia, but it doesn't sound outlandish from what I know about kind of, the different forms of governments out there. The Iranian parliament has seats set aside for Jewish people, Zoroastrians, and Christians. Well, we never hear about that, do we? And when I was younger, the couple of guys I knew from Iran, one was a Zoroastrian, the other was a Muslim, and the worst is they tease each other a bit at lunch. Chapter 6, and yes, I still remember my Spanish, you can slice and dice arguments any way you want to. And that's what we should be doing. Compare with our, quote, good guy team of Saudi Arabia, the Gulf Arab states, monarchies, not democratic. Compare Israel. Israel is democratic, but Amnesty International and other human rights groups seem to be describing them as having an apartheid-like system and sure are killing a lot of Palestinians. Well, does that sound truly democratic? Our own nation, the US of A, well, if you want to portray us as undemocratic, you just show how much buckets and buckets of money, and I've shown you this before, are coming from fossil fuel petrochemicals and the defense industry going to our politicians, and then whatever ties they got with our media, that media all owned by wealthy business interests with little interest in exploring all that money coming from those dominant industries. So just recap from a couple of my earlier shows in Iran, look, that country has been under maximum sanctions, strangling their economy, kind of like what we're doing to Cuba, fomenting unrest or trying to. We've been supporting opposition, supporting a divisive media broadcast into there and among the expats, attempting to arm opposition groups, periodically attacking them, ways back supported Iraq's invasion into Iranian territory before we turned on Iraq, targeted assassinations of their top leaders. Well, what country going through all this stuff is going to stay free and open or evolve that way? And what the politicians and everybody is calling for is telling people to overthrow elected officials and volunteer militia members and replace it with what? And now for Lucky 7, my fellow Americans. My fellow Americans, I realize that support for this war is not popular. But wow, are people quiet about their opposition to it? And from what I hear in the media and people talking, it seems like most of the opposition just stems from Trumpism winning. What a bungle. And it is these one-sided narratives on Iran or any of our so-called adversaries over a lifetime that why the people at the helm of our machine are thinking what they are doing is okay. Bombing and killing and invading and cooing. Trump grew up in the same media environment as everyone else his age did. Hearing, if any of you can remember it, the tune Bob Iran redone to the lyrics changed to Bomb Iran. It's these one-sided narratives that got us into this mess, or the underemphasizing of, quote, inconvenient facts, close quote, that, and by this mess, I mean endless wars on a heating planet with a biosphere being pumped full of greenhouse gases, microplastics, and carcinogens. And that path, my fellow Americans, is not in the interest of the American people, nor the Iranian people, nor people, period. Well, hermanos y hermanas, brothers and sisters, friends, countrymen, I hope you found this show helpful and interesting. You hung in with me till the end. And if you did, you get the gold star. Hit that subscribe button if you didn't do it already. Post a comment. Constructive criticism, cool. Positive feedback's terrific. Check out revolutionarygraphics.org. Maybe pick up a shirt if you need a shirt. Some good, cool artwork there. Donate at Patreon. And as always, until next time, peace or salam or shalom be with you.